Hello everyone, it's Niz, and today I'm going to be doing a video on Rise of Galactron, because, you see, there are two things I've always wanted when thinking more and more about what could be with Awesomenauts. A game like Awesomenauts but has more emphasis on the combat and is completely devoid of the droids, or a game like Awesomenauts that is completely focused on being PvE and goes nuts with the droids, making the equivalent of a 2D version of a firefight mode or man vs. machine. The former I sort of just settle with battle rate. The latter is a bit more complicated. I used to play this Flash game called The Last Castle, which was a great PvE survival Flash game, but unfortunately it was shut down 2 years ago. You wouldn't even know it existed if you haven't played it, taken off of armor games and everything. It's really untapped demographic, but Awesomenauts also provided me with a base defense mode. Base defense was a mod for AI Station, yes that's how old this was, and it provided the enemy group with a seemingly endless wave of enemy Awesomenauts.
Pony on up over here! Defend!
Today's agenda, aggressive negotiations.
This dance is futile.
I'll get on the paperwork.
I require more technology.
You best skedaddle! Time to kick butt and chew tobacco!
Mr. Zorg has some pressing matters to attend to.
Yellow belly!
Considering that they do significantly less damage to structures with HC Bomb, I find it kind of funny that the strategy to deal with Raylan's is to stay behind turret. Talk about fighting fire with fire. It was really fun to play, but with the leveling system I can't imagine that it aged well. In fact, I gotta assume it hasn't aged well because I can't download it anymore. Download's no longer available, so it looks like my 2 outlets for this type of game are gone. Or so I thought. But then I came across Awesomenauts Rise of Galactron, a game mode made by Paraki. Rise of Galactron is a wave survival mod where you fight against robot Awesomenauts as well as droids. It's done on a custom-made map that uses a lot of teleportation orbs to get around, and the goal is to defend the base for 10 minutes. Well, I say 10 minutes, but it's actually 9 minutes and 30 seconds on easy mode because you get 30 seconds of setup time. But the premise remains the same. When it comes to rating knots in this mode, it usually comes down to who can defend turret the best. But to be fair, that's not the mode's fault, that's just how Awesomenauts functions. No matter how high your DPS is, if you can't hit the back line and hit the super droids, you're going to be dealing with them firing at separate intervals and just hitting you over and over, and no matter how tanky you are, you're not going to survive that. So you're going to need some sort of means of destroying the super droids in the back line, but with all the maxes in the way, you're probably going to need Pierce, as well as range. With that in mind, you can't really solo this with any melee knots, except maybe Ayla. Hold that thought. Okay, so Ayla will work, but she definitely can't do it on hard because, well, I don't want to spoil too much because I'm going to make a video on this, but I will go over a bit of it right now. I was going to have to talk about the same way to go over the hiccups of the map. The map is separated up into 3 sections, and you can travel to each section by taking the teleport orb. The droids will show up to invade each section, from 1 to 3. In section 1, they'll go through 3 rows of 2 turrets, while section 2 is more of a condensed version of Serona, having 2 turrets and then bottlenosing into 1. I guarantee you, no matter what knot you play, this is the section you're going to spend the least amount of time in. Not because it has the least amount of turrets, although that certainly helps, but for some reason the 3rd turret in the back is slightly elevated, and the amount of ground in front of the turret that is of that elevation is enough for the enemy Awesomenauts to stand in front of it and to body block for the turret like usual, yet not enough for the super droids who stay in the back. So even if you do have an AoE or Pierce, hitting them is more annoying than usual. Keep in mind, almost the entire time a Max is always flying in front of the turret, going up and down, bob and weave, so it's really hard to get a skill shot through there. Like I said, I won't go into too much detail about it here, but in short, once they get past the first 2 turrets, it's not really worth defending that much. Around that point, it's a good time to go to the shop. Section 3 is either your heaven or hell. It has 4 turrets on top, 3 turrets on bottom, and 2 turrets to the base. This place is where you're either going to hold the other 5 minutes defending, or you're going to realize, oh god, I might as well restart, I can't hold out for 7 more minutes. There's also this pit at the bottom that spawns a bunch of solar bosses over time. Never figured out the purpose of it. So with that out of the way, I want to go over a few of the issues with the map. The starting one would probably be that the maxes in the first stage often go in between lanes before even getting past the turrets. This is sometimes done because they try to fly over Awesomenauts, so when you go to your personal safe haven in that little area for the critter or to teleport back, they sometimes follow you up there. The good news is this is a really easy fix. All Procky would have to do is put a couple red barriers in between the safe havens so that blues can't go through and get stuck. Another small issue is that sometimes when enemies are affected by knockback, they'll just fall through glass panels, even if it's not directed downwards. The next issue is a bit rougher to deal with because I have the sneaking suspicion that it's necessary for the mode to even work. This issue is that, enemy Awesomenauts don't count as Awesomenauts. With the exception of the 30 solar they give out, they lack a lot of qualities that count them as Awesomenauts. The first obvious thing is that they don't give as much XP, but that's most likely just an XP tweak so that you don't become God Incarnate. I actually think that might be why solar bosses are there, so that knots that aren't viable for defending can still contribute by farming the solar boss. But I managed to already poke a few holes in my own train of thought, first of which, in the rate of the solar bosses spawning, you're just not going to make nearly as much solar as killing 4 Awesomenauts at a time in the front line. That extra XP must be really nice though. But to safely and effectively farm them, you'd have to have a knot that has range, high damage, and AoE. And if you have the ability to deal with several stacked, tanky, high damaging AoE enemies from a distance, you should just be in the front lines. But I'm getting off topic. One of the reasons I say the enemy Awesomenauts don't count as actual knots is that they're not targeted by knots only abilities, so abilities like Precision Shot and Chakram Shift go right through them, and it leads to a lot of situations where a lot of Awesomenauts are not nearly as good as they should be. For example, Rocco. Since his Precision Shot goes right through enemies and doesn't damage any of them, he can't use it for any source of damage. This also means he can't use Lil Johnny to stun the entire group, which makes pretty much everything outside of his basic attack row upgrades useless. And remember when I brought up Chakram? Katara's one of those melee knots who would get shredded the moment that Super Droids started stacking, but an upgrade that makes that attack ranged and pierce would be a complete game changer. But due to how the knots function in this mode, there's nobody to hit with Chakram, meaning she's stuck with melee. So Katara ends up being one of the only knots I can think of that would end up performing well exclusively in the solar boss pit, and it's a real shame because a lot of knots end up suffering immensely because of this, while characters like Chucho end up completely unscathed, and a few others will just have to avoid damaging abilities that only affect Awesomenauts. And the worst part is I'm not even sure this can be fixed. Maybe there's a problem with the engine when there's more than a certain amount of Awesomenauts, and maybe the workaround for that is to make them not register as Awesomenauts. I can't know for certain, but I just get this feeling that this one just isn't a bug. I'll go ahead and end this off with one I know can be fixed, and that's the orbs. The teleport orbs that spawn, for starters, are way too close together, and it's really easy to jump into a portal that you didn't intend to. Spraying them out even just a bit would help, and this was more of a personal opinion, but I think when it comes to teleporting back, you should just ditch the orbs entirely and just have the default teleport. Even though the delay after teleporting is pretty long, the travel back with the immediate blink to where you were before kind of makes up for it. I say this because with some characters you just have to drop into the orb, you can't jump into them, because if you jump upward into an orb you'll spawn right underneath the teleport orbs back into the fight. The amount of time I could just use teleporting back by default and then taking the correct orb is less than the times I accidentally take the wrong orb, then have to go back through the orb, and then accidentally go through another orb and just decide to teleport back. But my point still stands, I think the orbs in the beginning need to be spread out a bit more. With that being said, Rise of Galactron is fun and addicting. That bit I made earlier with Ayla, that wasn't even written in the script, I just went back to see if it would work. That's how fun it is. When I get tired of recording, I'll take breaks just to play Rise of Galactron. There's been plenty of times over the month, even when I'm taking a break from Awesomenauts, where I'll launch it up just to play Galactron. And that's just alone. I haven't tried it out with friends yet to try out combos, or even gone on to that map where you play PvE, but against other people to see who can defend better. So I recommend downloading this mod and giving it a try. It's one of my favorite mods of all time, and if it got its issues ironed out, the only thing that could compete with it in my eyes would be story mode mods. Well, that's all I have for now. Until next time, be safe.